It's not often that we get a very clear preview of the future, but that is exactly what the CEO of Shopify has given us with a new AI mandate for his company. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. If you were anywhere around either LinkedIn or X over the last 24 hours or so, you probably have already seen, or at least seen conversation about, this internal memo from Shopify CEO Tobi Lütke. Now, this was apparently in the process of being leaked when Tobi decided to just post the whole thing so that it couldn't be misappropriated or miscontextualized. What's capturing people's attention with this is that this is not a gentle statement of suggestion when it comes to AI. This is a new mandate from on high around how Shopify is going to move to a reflexive AI posture with everyone using AI in a fluent and deeply integrated way. Capturing the most attention, of course, is the provision that says that Shopify folks are not allowed to request new hires until they have confirmed that AI can't do that job, as this, of course, cuts right into fears around AI-related job displacement. But the story is much bigger than that. This is, I think, a preview of the future and a document that, while seeming perhaps on the vanguard or even to some extreme today, will seem within a very short period of time, probably about a year, completely obvious. So let's actually read it first, and then we'll dig into it. It's not all that long. When he reposted it to Twitter, Tobi titled it, "Reflexive AI usage is now a baseline expectation at Shopify." He writes, "Team, we are entering a time where more merchants and entrepreneurs could be created than any other in history. We often talk about bringing down the complexity curve to allow more people to choose this as a career. Each step along the entrepreneurial path is rife with decisions requiring skill, judgment, and knowledge. Having AI alongside the journey and increasingly doing not just the consultation, but also doing the work for our merchants is a mind-blowing step function change here. Our task at Shopify is to make our software unquestionably the best canvas on which to develop the best businesses of the future. We do this by keeping everyone cutting edge and bringing all the best tools to bear, so our merchants can be more successful than they themselves used to imagine. For that, we need to be absolutely ahead. Reflexive AI usage is now a baseline expectation at Shopify. Maybe you are already there and find this memo puzzling. In that case, you already use AI as a thought partner, deep researcher, critic, tutor, or pair programmer. I use it all the time, but even I feel I'm only scratching the surface. It's the most rapid shift to how work is done that I've seen in my career, and I've been pretty clear about my enthusiasm for it. You've heard me talk about AI in weekly videos, podcasts, town halls, and Summit. Last summer, I used agents to create my talk and presented about that. I did this as a call to action and invitation for everyone to tinker with AI, to dispel any skepticism or confusion that this matters at all levels. Many of you took up that call, and all of us who did have been in absolute awe of the new capabilities and tools that AI can deliver to augment our skills, crafts, and fill in our gaps. What we have learned so far is that using AI well is a skill that needs to be carefully learned by using it a lot. It's just too unlike everything else. The call to tinker with it was the right one, but it was too much of a suggestion. This is what I want to change here today. We have also learned that as opposed to most tools, AI acts as a multiplier. We are all lucky to work with some amazing colleagues, the kind who contribute 10x of what was previously thought possible. It's my favorite thing about this company. And what's even more amazing is that, for the first time, we see the tools become 10x themselves. I've seen many of these people approach implausible tasks, ones we wouldn't have even chosen to tackle before, with reflexive and brilliant usage of AI to get 100x the work done. In my On Leadership memo years ago, I described Shopify as a Red Queen race based on the Alice in Wonderland story. You have to keep running just to stay still. In a company growing 20 to 40% every year, you must improve by at least that every year just to requalify. This goes for me as well as everyone else. This sounds daunting, but given the nature of the tools, this doesn't even sound terribly ambitious to me anymore. It's also exactly the kind of environment that our top performers tell us they want. Learning together, surrounded by people who are also on their own journey of personal growth, and working on worthwhile, meaningful, and hard problems is precisely the environment Shopify was created to provide. This represents both an opportunity and a requirement, deeply connected to our core values of be a constant learner and thrive on change. These aren't just aspirational phrases. They're fundamental expectations that come with being a part of this world-class team. This is what we founders wanted, and this is what we built. And so here we get to the meat of it. What this means. 1, using AI effectively is now a fundamental expectation of everyone at Shopify. It's a tool of all trades today and will only grow in importance. Frankly, I don't think it's feasible to opt out of learning the skill of applying AI in your craft. You're welcome to try, but I want to be honest, I cannot see this working out today and definitely not tomorrow. Stagnation is almost certain, and stagnation is slow motion failure. If you're not climbing, you're sliding. 2, AI must be a part of your GSD prototype phase. The prototype phase of any GSD project should be dominated by AI exploration. Prototypes are meant for learning and creating information. AI dramatically accelerates this process. You can learn to produce something other teams can look at, use, and reason about in a fraction of the time it used to take. 3, we will add AI usage questions to our performance and peer review questionnaire. Learning to use AI well is an unobvious skill. My sense is that a lot of people give up after writing a prompt and not getting the ideal thing back immediately. Learning to prompt and load context is important, and getting peers to provide feedback on how this is going will be valuable. 4, learning is self-directed, but share what you learned. You have access to as much of the cutting-edge AI tools as possible. There is chat.shopify.io, which we've had for years now. Developers have Proxy, Copilot, Cursor, Claude Code, all pre-tooled and ready to go. We'll learn and adapt together as a team. We'll be sharing wins and losses with each other as we experiment with new AI capabilities, and we'll dedicate time to AI integration in our monthly business reviews and product development cycles. Slack and Vault have lots of places where people share prompts that they developed. 5, before asking for more headcount and resources, teams must demonstrate why they cannot get what they want done using AI. What would this area look like if autonomous AI agents were already part of the team? This question can lead to really fun discussions in projects. 6, everyone means everyone. This applies to all of us, including me and the executive team. Finally, he concludes the path forward. AI will totally change Shopify, our work, and the rest of our lives. We're all in on this. I couldn't think of a better place to be part of this truly unprecedented change than being here. You don't just get a front row seat, but are surrounded by a whole company learning and pushing things forward. Our job is to figure out what entrepreneurship looks like in a world where AI is universally available. And I intend for us to do the best possible job of that. And to do that, I need everyone's help. I already laid out a lot of the AI projects and the themes this year. Our roadmap is clear, and our product will better match our mission. What we need to succeed is our collective sum total skill and ambition at applying our craft, multiplied by AI for the benefit of our merchants. All right, so that is the piece. Like I said, a lot of the attention around it has to do with that 5th bullet about hiring. The Wall Street Journal piece is titled "Shopify Says No New Hires Unless AI Can't Do the Job." TechCrunch's story is called "Shopify CEO Tells Teams to Consider Using AI Before Growing Headcount." And before we get into more substantive conversation, we should note that some people thought that this actually had to do with what was going on in the macro environment. Apple developer Nathan Lawrence, for example, tweeted, "Hard not to see this announcement as a soft hiring freeze caused by the ongoing economic situation, which is probably hitting many Shopify customers very hard." Others chimed in that yes, maybe this was a way to basically freeze hiring without spooking Wall Street. And while I don't think that there's nothing to this, obviously every company is trying to adapt to a very complicated and very tricky environment that doesn't have a lot of answers or clarity around how the future is going to evolve. It strikes me that to the extent that that is true, its main force is accelerating something which is clearly already a priority for this company. And so at least for our purposes, I think we don't have to dwell too much on how much that macro environment is playing into this particular policy right now. To the extent that there was concern or critique about this, it usually fell into the category of either 1, this isn't the right approach to executive leadership, basically forcing things by dictate isn't likely to work. I will share in a minute why I think that's exactly opposite to true. But the other side is, of course, just general concern around what the implications are for labor. And this wasn't even necessarily coming from people who thought that Shopify was doing anything wrong, but more of just a general concern. Malcolm Peralty writes, "The recession we are already in and that will worsen in large part thanks to trade tariffs will massively increase the adoption of AI in companies. The latest announcement from Shopify CEO about AI and headcount is just the start. Companies will aggressively downsize as an understanding of how to use AI matures. No position is safe, no level of talent is safe. The best thing you can do is diversify your skill set in hopes it keeps you employable." Now, I have a slightly different read on this. First of all, I think it's important here to reintroduce this framework that I have of opportunity AI versus efficiency AI. Efficiency AI is a way of looking at artificial intelligence, of course, as a tool for efficiency, a way to get the same outputs with fewer inputs. I've said before frequently that I think that inevitably some number of companies will view AI strictly in this way. They will view it as an exciting way to reduce their costs, maybe get some plaudits from Wall Street in the short term for doing so, but ultimately be wildly outcompeted by the companies who instead view AI as fundamentally opportunity generating. Putting opportunity AI in terms of labor, those who see AI as a way to radically expand the capability of their teams to deliver new products, new services, better products, better services, and whose focus instead of on cost savings, on expansion and growth. Ultimately, the companies that win are not the companies that save the most, they're the companies that grow the most. And I think that even to the extent that part of the immediate term motivation for Shopify is bracing for recession, which could more significantly impact them given the small business entrepreneurs that they deal with and who are their major customers. They're still very clearly coming at this from that opportunity AI, growth AI type of mindset. I mean, Tobi articulates extremely clearly here that the company has to grow 20 to 40% every year just to stay still. and that because of that, its people have to get 20 to 40% better year over year just to stay still. Thinking in that way and trying to exceed the stasis that comes from base level growth is definitionally an opportunity AI mindset. And I think it's really important to note that number 5, the mandate to prove that AI can't get done what you want to get done before asking for more headcount, does not preclude more headcount. It just says you have to start by seeing how far AI can get you. To me, this is as much about a mindset shift around how people are thinking about growth as it is any sort of soft hiring freeze. Let's put it this way. This is exactly the same thing that I expect inside Superintelligent. We stretch ourselves as far as we possibly can, every single person in this company, with AI, before we consider hiring more people. And yes, of course, in our startup world, that's because of resource constraints. But with big enough ambition, everyone is resource constrained. If you're trying to double your revenue as a big public company, even if you have all of the resources in the world theoretically compared to a small startup, you are still definitionally resource constrained. And so I think that this approach to hiring is just going to seem like common sense in the future. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some challenging implications here. In fact, I think it's very likely that this sort of becomes the default type of quote unquote job displacement that we see in the short term from AI. It's going to be about hiring freezes and hiring slowdowns, and people no longer hiring junior versions of themselves than it is about cutting out people who currently exist and are employed. Because even if you are in that growth mindset, there's going to be a big transitional period where you really want to see how far your existing team can get superpowered by these AI tools before you start throwing more people at it. Now, one unanswered question that this brings up is absolutely how we bring new people into the workforce, what the future of mentorship looks like. If no senior people who do X ever hire junior people who do X because they're just hiring agents who do X, how are we going to make that transition? Now, I actually have a ton of ideas. I'm fairly optimistic here, but I think it's important to recognize that there is theoretically a challenge there that we will want to address. In any case, this announcement was about a lot more than headcount. In fact, the thing that stood out most to me was the mandate of it. And this is, I think, the biggest shift that you're going to see. For a couple of years, there has been a strong encouragement from many organizations to start using and experimenting with AI. At the same time, there have been a couple of things holding organizations back. One of them is limiting the tools that are available to their people for concerns around security, privacy, etc. Another is sort of an illegitimacy of leadership. Basically, if employees don't see their managers and executives actually making these transitions, they're less likely to as well. A third piece of it is just the normal inertia. Suggestions are only going to take you so far. And that's why it both doesn't surprise me that we are now seeing the first mandates, and why I think this is exactly what's needed. Ultimately, people inside big companies are going to adapt to whatever they are evaluated on. And that's why this third bullet is in some ways, I think, the most significant of these. We will add AI usage questions to our performance and peer review questionnaire. In other words, you will be judged on whether you're actually using AI or not. I don't think anything short of that could actually prompt the change that's going to be required. And of course, bullet number 6, that this applies to everyone, is also related to this same sort of leadership dynamic of this. Ultimately, what matters is that there is going to be accountability for this AI transformation. Now, one thing that I think that Shopify is doing well here that other organizations could take a hint from is this idea of learning being self-directed and being more open and flexible to the tools that are available to people. Like I said, another big constraint on adoption is, of course, only having some crappy old version of Copilot that's totally underpowered relative to all the things you're using as an individual. It's why we have so many people signing in with their Gmails and using state-of-the-art tools instead of bumbling around with whatever their work said they could use. One of the single best things that big organizations could do is relax their defensive postures when it comes to experimenting with new tools, because otherwise these smaller and mid-sized organizations are just absolutely going to eat them for lunch. I did also want to mention quickly this idea of AI being a part of any sort of prototype or planning phase. This is maybe the most specific injunction here, and also one that we're seeing just everywhere now. AI in general creates a hugely differentiated opportunity to test out more ideas and whittle them down, rather than trying to figure out the best one before you've actually run any tests. What's more, the rise of these vibe coding tools has totally changed who has access to build and prototype things. Already we're seeing inside our own company and in other startups that we know, basically a ban on feature discussions that don't involve actual working prototypes, because there's just no reason not to be able to do that now. And in fact, going back to the point just before about enterprises relaxing their defensive posture, I actually think that this is one area where even very defensive organizations can move the quickest. Sure, maybe Lovable and Bolt and these tools are not ready for enterprise prime time when it comes to actually integrating with big morass-like code bases that are touched by thousands of people. But when it comes to mocking up new features, where you know that that mockup is never meant to see the light of day from an actual code perspective, it's just meant to feed the speed with which you can make new suggestions and have new conversations about new opportunities, it actually seems like something that perfectly hits that low stakes but high impact Goldilocks spot. I will be eagerly awaiting the first of you corporate executives to email me and tell me that your teams have embraced the vibe prototyping life. So as I said at the start, I believe that these Tobi rules, or whatever they end up being called, really do reflect where the world is headed. I would encourage that to the extent that these feel dramatic now, the more dramatic they feel, probably the farther you or your organization are behind. Not every organization has to adopt these exact same 6 mandates, but I think that they should be thinking in these sort of mandated type terms. And again, to reinforce, what's ultimately exciting about this is that I do believe that Shopify is coming at this with an opportunity AI mindset. And my strong guess is that this makes the company stronger, better performing, and ultimately is more likely to grow headcount in the medium and long term than if they didn't have these mandates in place. Anyways, guys, that is going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Appreciate you listening as always. Until next time, peace.